What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Jump. It's been a minute since I had an episode. I said in the last video that, or just the last podcast, that I would be going out of town. So I was out of town for debatably the craziest college football weekend of all time. Number 1 Alabama went down to Vanderbilt. Number 4, there was, I believe, 5 teams in the top 11 that lost last Saturday. And then this last week, it was up there with one of the best of all time, too. So, we've got a lot of football to talk about. I probably won't mention much of Week 6. You know all of that. It's been a couple weeks since then. But some awesome games coming up this weekend, and it could be 3 straight weekends of some of the best football we've ever seen. So, with that being said, let's get straight into it. So, I'm going to start off by reviewing like a little bit of the Week 7. So, start out Friday night. Cameron Scattaboo, it's a guy I've talked about for years now. Probably since I watched his highlights when he was transferring to Arizona State. Absolute dog. And if you all have probably seen the highlight by now, he stays up through anything. This is the only guy to be in front of Ashton Jeanty in, I believe, yards after contact. Or maybe it's broken tackles. Whatever it is, it's one of those categories. He's in front of Ashton Jeanty, who is currently the Heisman favorite. It's crazy what Scattaboo has been able to do. Number 16 Utah goes down in Tempe to Arizona State. So Arizona State 5-1. I mean, this wasn't a team that everybody was super high on in the preseason and just being a Big 12 like top team, but they're right there sitting in the passenger seat. They're not in the driver's seat because BYU and Iowa State are just rolling. But Arizona State is right there, 5-1, 2-1 in the Big 12 right now. It's awesome to see Kenny Dillingham kind of figuring it out. Unfortunate news, though. Arizona State, this week, they play... Who does Arizona State play this week? Sam Leavitt is out. They play at Cincinnati. So, college football legend Jeff Sims, former Georgia Tech quarterback, former Nebraska quarterback, he will be making the start for Kenny Dillingham as they travel up to Cincy. So, we'll see how that one goes. Arizona State, though, absolutely balling right now. Going through a couple others, UNLV put up 50. That's like every day that ends with Y, they can do that. Northwestern won at Maryland. Maryland ruined their nice uniforms. Then we get to Saturday. So, number 1, Texas. Number 18, Oklahoma. The Red River rivalry. Red River shootout, whatever you call it. One of the best rivalries in all of sports. I love this game every single year. The teams combined had 1 loss going into it, and then we come out with Texas obliterating them as expected. I think Texas was like a 16-point favorite. It was something around there. They went 34-3. And the first quarter, Texas looked like, oh man, they're being exposed for not playing anybody. And then 21 points in the second quarter. It's kind of felt like the first week that people learned who Ryan Wingo was, who has been mentioned numerous times on this podcast, that, I mean, there's the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, there's the Ryan Williams of the world. Ryan Wingo's right there with him. Freshman receiver for Texas. He is absolutely balling. And then Jaden Blue played well. Quinn Ewers, a little rust. That first quarter, one of the worst picks of his entire career, and then he comes back, ends up balling out. I had jumped to the conclusion, trying to just get a couple clicks here and there. In the first quarter, when he threw that pick, I said, it's time to turn to Arch for good. Obviously joking. This guy's going to be a first-round pick, possibly top 5 pick in Quinn Ewers, as long as he stays healthy. But, Texas rolls, and obviously they've got the massive one in Austin this week against the Georgia Bulldogs. But, big win for Texas. And Oklahoma, it almost feels like they've turned from Jackson Arnold too quick. They turned from him in the first half of that Tennessee game. Tennessee's got a good defense. I mean, I don't know what you expect. His first year starting, obviously he had to start in the bowl game, but like, I don't know. I just feel like, I guess if their O-line's not going to be able to block and they don't have any receivers right now, I guess they got to have a quarterback that can scramble, but it just feels like this situation was handled as poorly as possible by Brent Venables and company. So, I don't know if they'll ever go back to Jackson Darnold. I don't know if it's Mike Hawkins till they die, but Oklahoma sucks. And somehow they're a home favorite against South Carolina this week. So that's crazy. Then the big one, these are not in chronological order. I'm just going based off how ESPN has them. Number 2, Ohio State in Eugene against number 3, Oregon, 32-31 final. Absolute cinema. There was 2 plays. There might have been more. I feel like I've seen all the Dan Lanning praise all week so far. There was 2 plays that really highlighted this game from the standpoint of like kind of how Dan Campbell is for the Lions, that Dan Lanning was going to lose or win his way, and nobody was going to do a thing about it. In that, I think it was the second quarter, kicks it straight into an Ohio State guy, the front guy right in front of the kicker, kicks it straight at him like it's a squib. And the mindset is like, obviously, if it bounces back the way it did in the game, and then Oregon's getting the ball, good field position. The only thing that can happen in that situation, I feel like, is obviously they just catch the ball and fall or something like that. But that was an awesome gutsy call, because you're either hitting the guy or it's going way past. It's like a squib kick, and it's going to be fine. So that was one play that was highlighted. But the number 1 play that ended up getting a rule made about it as of tonight, Dan Lanning throws 12 men on the field. They're late to run the clock down a few seconds, because at that point, Ohio State needed time more than they needed anything else. And he makes them use, I believe it was 3 seconds, went from 10 to 6, or 10 to 7. And it's because he puts 12 men on the field. And, it was awesome to see. Dan Lanning's just an absolute genius. And now it's got a rule made about it. So Dan Lanning literally changed football. It's obvious. It's always been a loophole that happens. But yeah, and then obviously the final play there from Will Howard where he slides and pulls a Dak Prescott. But it was super cool to see Oregon, I guess, get over the hump, because Dan Lanning hadn't won a big one. I honestly thought, because Ryan Day lost to Oregon in 2021 to the Anthony Brown Oregon at home in Columbus, I thought he had all the motivation in the world. He's got the best roster money can buy, and he goes down there and loses in Eugene. It's crazy, but he always comes up short. And I don't know, obviously, at this point, if Ohio State loses to Michigan this year, or if they get embarrassed in the playoff or something, he's probably getting fired. And yeah, you can kind of understand what they're getting from, because at this point, this is a culmination of the best roster you can even imagine in college football. They have numerous first-round draft picks on their defense that return, and Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Denzel Burke. These are elite players, and they all return. You bring in Quinshon Judkins, you bring in Will Howard, you have Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka, Carnell Tate. This roster is unreal, and if they can't get it done this year, Ryan's gone. It's just that's just how it's going to be. Ohio State's got bigger standards than that, but this game I think is more about Oregon, because we talked about that Ohio State defense a ton, talked about it all year. I didn't think that they would ever even allow 30 plus, and Oregon goes and scores 32, and they did everything that they needed to do that entire game, and it was awesome to see. It felt like Ohio State could never get a pass rush, because if he had to get out of the pocket, Dylan Gabriel was doing it. And he obviously had that big touchdown run there in the fourth to take the lead. It was just amazing. It was a perfect game from Dylan Gabriel. That's why I'll talk about the Heisman rankings in a minute, and I already posted them this week. That's why Dylan Gabriel shot up that Heisman board. He literally played a perfect football game. There was barely any flaws. But I do want to mention that I hate to pile on somebody, and I know it's been talked about all week, but Will Howard, that last drive was horrendous. So I ended up tweeting it out on the Jump Sports Twitter. He legitimately fell on the first play of the drive without being touched. That wasted time. And like I said, they needed time more than anything. That wasted time. He falls as making the throw. I think it was to Ibuka. Rolling left, he fell. He was literally terrified. And you could just tell it was obvious. And Kyle McCord did the same thing last year. So Kyle McCord did that same type of thing in the Michigan game, but it felt like he had more control. So I don't know if this is a Ryan Day thing, but Will Howard legitimately, even the one with the 12 men on the field, he ended up falling. I don't understand you're brought to Ohio State to win these games, be in these situations, and he is legitimately crapping his pants in these big moments. And that can't happen if you're Will Howard, because they're going to be in a game like this. They're going to make the playoff. They're going to go 11-1. they're going to be in tough games like this, and he's got to be able to perform late because it's not even that the Kyle McCord thing is aging poorly. It's just, I don't know. Like, you can't say Kyle McCord would have made those plays, whatever. I think both parties succeeded from that move. So it was sad to see Will Howard kind of go out like that, but I don't know. Big win for Oregon, though. Huge win for Oregon. It was kind of the Evan Stewart coming out party because Tez Johnson has been elite all year, and he's been their number one all year. And I've been waiting until Evan Stewart, and he waits, and he comes out in this biggest game, and it felt like every single play he was wide open. It felt like that the whole time. And Denzel Burke got cooked. He might have lost 20 draft picks worth of stock. Like, it was poor what he displayed out there. He was just getting burnt every single play. But yeah, now that added to the list of Big Ten teams going 2 time zones over. They were like 2-9 with this game or something. It was something crazy. Another game that goes a couple time zones over. Number 4 Penn State going into Hollywood and playing USC. USC has literally nothing to lose, or I guess everything to lose in this sense, because this was the game that if they won it, they might be back. They would get ranked after this one and get rolling. And boy, did it look good early. They went up 20-6 in the first half, and then Tyler Warren became USC's biggest nightmare, and they had zero answers for it. Tyler Warren, Penn State tight end, probably like top 3 best solo performance I've ever seen in my entire life. This man, he ended up snapping the ball on one play and catching the touchdown on it. It was crazy. So he had a rush for 4 yards. He had 224 receiving yards and a touchdown with 17 catches. I think they said that tied the Penn State record. And yeah, Drew Allar, 391 yards. And he hadn't thrown a pick that season, I don't think, until that game he threw 3. So, USC defense was balling out, and especially that first half. It was crazy. Then in overtime, Penn State gets it done, and they played nearly a perfect second half, doing everything they needed. And then they kept spamming the Tyler Warren button, and Lincoln Riley could not figure a thing about it. Like, he couldn't do anything about it. And I was kind of shocked. Danton Lynn couldn't fix that at all either. So, yeah, USC is definitely down to tremendous right now. They're 3-3. They pay him $10 million a year to go 3-3, and they don't pay Lincoln Riley $10 million a year to be out of the college football playoff by October. What was that? 12th. Yeah. I mean, if you're out in mid-October, it might be hot seat clock in Hollywood. Mississippi State keeps it close with Georgia. This was the Michael Van Buren game because his numbers were incredible. 306 yards on that Georgia defense, and Carson Beck continues to just put up unreal numbers to make his Heisman case. 459 yards in this one, but yeah, for Mississippi State, like, they had, I mean, their tight end, I can't even remember how to spell his name or how to say his name. Or I don't think he's a tight end. I think he's a receiver. That Kelly. However, it's like Akiari or something. I don't remember how it's pronounced. They said it, obviously on the broadcast, they say it phenomenally, but he had 2 touchdowns in this game. So, phenomenal game from him. And then Kevin Coleman Jr. coming out party. This was not coming out party, but doing this on the number 5 team in the land on their home field. 103 receiving yards is phenomenal. And it does feel like Georgia, I don't know if, I just don't know what their identity is, because the first half, it feels like they can never get rolling. I don't know. They should not be in a game 10 points. Like, there's no world where a Glenn Schumann defense should allow 31 points to a team this poor. Like, Mississippi State is bad. They have a chance to play spoiler this week, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of takeaways from that. But if you didn't see it, also Kirby Smart did push Michael Van Buren, so true freshman, and people saying Kirby Smart's a criminal. So I don't know. Think what you want on that. He says he didn't push him, but if you look up the video, he definitely had a little nudge for him. Then Alabama plays. Gosh, dude, this felt like this was a noon game. It feels like it was 3 weeks ago. Number 7, Alabama, chance to bounce back after the Vanderbilt loss, and they barely scrape out a win, 27-25. And they allowed South Carolina to go the length of the field, and they allow Nick Harbor to make one of the most spectacular catches. Then, I believe that's when, they went for 2. They don't get the 2 because, Lenore Sellers threw it into the 15th row on the 2-point conversion. But then they get the onside, and then they end up stopping them there. And that game, that was bad. That was really, really bad. It's an opportunity. Okay, so Nick Saban would have never lost to Vanderbilt in the first place. He would have his guys ready for that, the rat poison, whatever. But you can bet if they would have lost to Vanderbilt under a Nick Saban team, they would have came out and it would have been unreal what they did to the next team. They would have beat this South Carolina team by at least 75 points if they lost to Vanderbilt under Nick Saban. But yeah, and all the talk for the Tide fan base right now is just get Kalen DeBoer in a collared shirt because he's wearing wore a T-shirt, and then that was a Vandy, and then he wore a little hooded, just comfortable hoodie type thing on Saturday. So get the man in the collar shirt, help the people out there. And then people were talking about him smiling after the game after barely scraping out a win against 3-3 South Carolina. So it was definitely a weird one. One of the late games that was on while my Kentucky Wildcats were playing. Number 8 Tennessee hosting Florida. This game had come out at a 14.5 point line, I believe. So I was like, Tennessee will cover that. They're a much better team than Florida, and Florida hangs in there until the very end. Graham Mertz gets hurt, so he's out for the year. But yeah, they take him to overtime. Dylan Sampson, what a game! The numbers he's putting up, they'll never get the shine that he deserves because obviously Ashton Jeanty exists, but Dylan Sampson, he did have 27 carries, but he had 112 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's crazy. He can catch the ball a little bit too. He had a couple catches in this one too. So Dylan Sampson, big shout out to him. So yeah. Then one of the best rivalries of recent years in overtime, number 9 Ole Miss goes to Death Valley and loses to number 13 LSU, 29-26. Garrett Nussmeier is finally getting the hype that he deserves. He's been balling this whole year. This game, what were his numbers in this game? Yeah, 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. And obviously, Ole Miss at this point, they've probably got to win out to be able to make the playoff. Unless it's a 1-point loss to Georgia, but that might even knock them out. So yeah, Ole Miss, they're walking on thin ice right now because it's tough scenes there in Oxford. But for LSU, I mean, they're in control of their own destiny. They got a sneaky game this week at Arkansas for the boot, but 5-1 right now and undefeated in the SEC. So it's crazy. Ole Miss 1-2 in the SEC through their first 3. That's wild. Clemson continues to roll. Wake Forest actually scored first, and then Clemson never looked back. Went 49-14, and they are absolutely rolling. And I don't know if the country is kind of forgotten or what's happened, but Clemson is a top 5 team in America in my eyes right now. Notre Dame rolling. A&M, they obviously have that Notre Dame loss, but it's aging like fine wine because Notre Dame is balling 49-7. They have a game at Georgia Tech this week that'll be a sneaky one, but if they can win that one, keep rolling. And Stanford's not a horrible team, so big win for Notre Dame. Obviously a rivalry game, anything can happen. Iowa State goes into Morgantown and spoils the Cola uniforms for West Virginia. They win 28-16, and this felt like the game that officially ended West Virginia's season in my eyes. Obviously a team with a little bit of hype in the offseason. Neil Brown has kind of had it figured out last year. He's returning Garrett Green. Now they're 3-3 and 2-1 in the Big 12. So it's tough scenes there in Morgantown right now. BYU. Jake Ratzlaff continues to roll. Number 14 BYU beat Arizona 41-19, and they do not stop. And it was on Yom Kippur. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. So, for those of you that don't know, and I only learned this from the College Game Day broadcast, because if you can't tell by now, by my lack of knowledge for this day, I'm not Jewish. So, I had learned from the College Game Day, the little video that they had made on Jake Ratzlaff, So usually on Yom Kippur, I think they called it the most holy day in all of the calendar for Jews. So you're supposed to. There might be fasting involved, and you're not supposed to have any physical labor. So there were some Jewish people that were a little upset with him that he was playing the game, but then some people talked to him, and so he ends up going out there, and he was like, all right, well, if I'm going to go out there, I've got to win. There's no way I can lose if I'm going to play on Yom Kippur, and he goes out there and he does it. And it's been awesome to see what he does. I mean, obviously I'm not Jewish, so it's something like that I don't completely understand, but he's one of 3 Jews at a Mormon school right now, and everybody says that he's just a light around the locker room, and so it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. So BYG, they're rolling. So shout out to Brigham Young out there. They're absolutely rolling. 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12, and they're in control. 17 Boise State. Ashton Jeanty, he woke up and got 2 touchdowns, 217 yards. Nothing else to say there. A late game, Kansas State at Colorado. Awesome game, and Colorado made that late push. They score 14 in the 4th, but it's just not enough as Kansas State gets out of there. Huge touchdown pass there, late from Avery Johnson to get them out of there. So Kansas State, it looked like it was going to be tough because of the early loss in the Big 12, but now they're sitting 5-1 and ranked top 15 now. So Missouri gets their get-right game. I was a little alarmed by how well UMass moved the ball. They didn't move the ball a lot, obviously. They had 0 points, or they had a field goal. But they moved the ball decently well. They went 45-3, Missouri does, but I still don't completely believe in Missouri. Cal loses at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, the quietest 6-0 team in all of the land. Pittsburgh's just rolling. That's all you can say. And Eli Holstein has been the difference there, and Desmond Reed's been balling for him too. So pretty big win. Cal's not a bad team by any means. There's a reason Game Day went out there. They weren't ranked, but they have a lot of respect from all of college football. Then Purdue goes to Champaign. This game made no sense. I'm just going to assume Illinois was looking forward to their game against Michigan this week because Purdue goes in there. The Purdue Spoilermakers, and they go into 23 Illinois, and they lose in overtime because they went for 2 on the first overtime possession, which, if you're not familiar with the overtime rules, the new ones are you have the ball at 30, you go in, if you score, you can kick an extra point, go into the next one. The next one, you score, I believe that's when you have to go for 2. If you both tie, whatever, then it's all 2-point conversions from there. But, I mean, this game, Purdue ends up going, they score, they go for 2, and they don't get it, so Illinois scrapes out a victory there. But this had to be just a game that Illinois looked over because or maybe it just started at half because they almost blew a 28-3 lead. So, it was a tough look, but or I guess it was 27-3 when they were up the most. But yeah, and on ESPN you can usually do the no, I can't find it. The chart. I wanted to see the percentage chance of Illinois winning that game, but I can't find that graph. Moving on to another Big Ten matchup, Washington, which still feels crazy to say, travels to Iowa, and Caleb Johnson sends them back home on a sad flight. 40-16 final. Caleb Johnson continues to prove that he's the second best running back in college football, and I don't think it's a debate. 3 touchdowns in this game. So shout out to Caleb Johnson. He's sitting there balling. He's just behind Jeanty for the best running back in all of college football. Wisconsin. I didn't see this one at all. This was, when I was watching this, I couldn't believe my eyes because Pauling scores that early touchdown. I was like, okay, well, Rutgers got to go down and score. And Wisconsin's defense wouldn't allow a thing. And they kept scoring and kept scoring and kept scoring. 42-7 final. Wisconsin wins in Piscataway and beats Rutgers to give them their second loss. It was crazy. Georgia Tech went to North Carolina. This was literally a game that friggin' Jamal Haynes has a 68-yard touchdown as they're just trying to run out the clock to go to overtime. Tied at 34, and he scores a 68-yard touchdown. And yeah, gives them the lead late. It was crazy. A literal collapse from North Carolina. It was bad. Yeah, this game was disgusting. I glanced over at the score and I wanted to throw up. Ball State beat Kent State 37-35. Buffalo upset Toledo in the MAC 30-15. Big upset there. Army continues to roll 6-0, beat UAB 44-10, and Bryson Daly is making his case for, Heisman at this point. Like, it's crazy what Bryson Daly's been able to do, and Kanye Udo right there with him as his partner in crime right there. So it's been awesome to see, and obviously both service academies are still rolling. So yeah, moving on from that one, Louisville goes to Charlottesville and wins at Virginia. Shout out to Isaac Brown, freshman running back for Louisville. He was listed as like On Three's freshman of the week, so it's awesome to see that. And yeah, Louisville needed this win. They obviously have a big one upcoming, and Louisville was rolling, and they haven't looked good in the last couple, obviously, but 4-2, sitting at 2-1 in the ACC, and Virginia's not a bad team. Like, Virginia plays Clemson this week, so we'll really see a test, but not a terrible team there for the Cavaliers. Cincinnati UCF. I only know from this game is KJ Jefferson literally got benched for somebody that sucks. So yeah, I don't know. Brendan Sorsby played well, and yeah, 19-13 Cincinnati. Wyoming, they're not the worst team in college football because Kent State is gladly holding that title, but they are awful. They lost to San Diego State in Wyoming, so now they're sitting at 1-5 overall. Old Dominion, Georgia State, don't need that. Yeah, not too many others to talk about. My Kentucky Wildcats go down to Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt. This game, obviously, a lot of the people watching this probably or listening to this maybe not be Kentucky fans or don't care about Kentucky football. This game, if you haven't seen it one of our most undisciplined and penalized games that we've ever played, and it's gotten so bad that we have our coach Mark Stoops calling out players for not tying their shoe because they're getting taken out of the game for their shoe falling off. Just I don't understand the point of not tying the shoe, but it's at that point of the program. So I don't know. This is the point though. Kentucky looks as bad as possible. 3-3. This is the point where we go to Florida and just mess around and win by 20. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but literally no surprise, or nothing would be a surprise in this game at Florida. So we'll see how that goes in Gainesville. Minnesota got that win. Max Brosmer, he helps take over the lead late, 21-17. That game was disgusting. It's crazy to think about that being a Big Ten game. But I guess that's about it for the reviews kind of the week. Obviously, the big takeaways is Oregon beating Ohio State and that. So, other than that, I'm going to go to stocks of the week. So the stocks of the week is where I'll, pick a stock that I'll buy in, stock that I would sell. This week, I'm doing for the second, maybe third time this season, buying stock in the service academies. Army and Navy both ranked in the top 25 since 1960. Both undefeated, both rolling. And now we have Army's coach going on the Pat McAfee show talking crap about Navy. So it's an awesome rivalry. And you all have probably heard by now the talk of the fact that they could play in the AAC championship, and then the college football playoff gets announced, and then that next week they play again, no matter what. So I'm kind of rooting for it because that would be one of the craziest stories in sports history. But so buying stock in service academies. Gonna sell stock in a team that I already talked about, USC. Like I said, you can't be too happy with a coach that's making the fourth or fifth most in college football and you being out of the playoff race in mid-October, second week of October. That's crazy. So USC is just down bad. All their fans are down bad. And to add to it, USC does that thing where they're having people pay like $1,500 and you can run out with the team, and a Penn State fan goes and buys it and runs out in Penn State gear, screaming "We are!" So, really, really bad time to be there in Hollywood. So, USC down bad, selling stock in them. Now on to the Heisman rankings. A couple guys make it for the first time. I drop a couple guys and move some things around. Week 8 Heisman rankings as we go into Week 8. Ashton Jeanty, number 1. I don't even need to talk about it. It's well-deserved. Cam Ward, 2. Travis Hunter with the injury. I moved him back to 3. Dylan Gabriel, 4. Caleb Johnson, 5. Garrett Nussmeier, 6. Cade Klubnik at 7. Diego Pavia at 8, making an appearance for the first time. Curtis Rourke, 9. And Carson Beck, 10. Obviously, Carson Beck, has a loss on his resume, but obviously some of these guys do. But I don't think that loss at Alabama is going to age too poorly. It has as of right now, but Carson Beck's numbers are incredible, and he's been balling. So a couple games to look forward to. This week I mentioned the one in Austin, number 5 Georgia, at number 1 Texas. This game's going to be amazing. It's the first time in a long time Georgia's been a underdog. If you go position by position, this is probably the only team in the country I can think of that might have a few positions that are better than Georgia. And that's been a rare thing to see in the last few years. So part of my thoughts on this game are Georgia, under Kirby Smart, has always had the issue with Alabama. So if you're thinking like, oh, well, they already lost to Alabama, they're not as good as Texas, then Texas should definitely beat them. My thoughts are Georgia goes into Austin and wins this game outright because Kirby Smart knows how to get his team rolling, and there's going to be points. It's going to have to be for Georgia to win this, but I think Georgia actually wins this game outright, and it's just not giving up on Georgia yet. Not giving up on them after one game. So I mentioned the Purdue spoiler makers. Oregon, number 2, at Purdue. So the number 2 team, it's a curse to go into West Lafayette as number 2. And Oregon's lost as number 2 numerous times in the past. Obviously different coaches, but they beat Iowa at Purdue. They've beat Ohio State at Purdue. They beat all these different teams as the home underdog, and maybe it's one to look out for. I don't know. Other than that, like the slate is extremely, extremely solid. Obviously, there's a couple more I still need to mention. This slate is extremely, extremely solid. Preseason, some of them looked a lot better than what they are. This one being one of them. 10-15 on Friday, Oklahoma State at number 13 BYU. This one looked better because BYU playing in Provo at night, anything can happen. Preseason, we thought BYU wouldn't be great. Oklahoma State would maybe be fighting around the playoff spot, winning the Big 12, blah, blah, blah. Now it's just completely flipped. BYU is in control of their own destiny, and Oklahoma State is down bad. They're struggling. Number 6, Miami at Louisville. This feels like a game that Louisville, no matter who the head coach is, that they end up winning. I would think Miami would go in there, handle business, and because I think Miami's that good, but the way they've been playing recently, Louisville's not a team that I think, like how Cal did, I don't think they're giving up that lead. So that's going to be an awesome game to watch. Don't have any clue what's going to happen in that one. Another outstanding game, which is crazy to say, is Nebraska at Indiana. Kurt Cignetti, love what he's doing. I win, Google me. One of the best quotes of all time. Indiana has an opportunity to... Nebraska, this would be the first time, I believe, in 10 years, if they win this game, which is very doable, in Bloomington, they can make a bowl. It would be crazy. It would be crazy if this is the one, because then they go and play Ohio State after this. But Indiana is a legit playoff contender. Like, they just beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they'll be in the playoff. Auburn at Missouri, number 19 Missouri. This game's going to be ugly. Missouri needs it because Missouri has a very, very favorable schedule, and they can make the playoff if they win these type games. They still play Alabama. They'll lose that one. But, big opportunity for both of these teams here. Auburn to get on the right path, and then Auburn, they haven't even played. Obviously, if you look at the teams they've lost to, schedule, whatever, they haven't truly played that bad. They just turn the ball over at the worst time. So if they can just not turn the ball over, that's all they need to do. They can definitely go into Columbia and win that game. 3:30. The flashback to 2 years ago. The crazy game in Neyland. The streak was broke. Number 7 Alabama at number 11 Tennessee. This game is going to be amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. And I was kind of shocked. I guess it's not shocking, but I was a little bit surprised that Alabama was the favorite, just being how Alabama's looked in the last couple weeks. Tennessee's also not looked great. So this game is going to be amazing. And I honestly believe Tennessee can win this one. And I think Tennessee is still a playoff team, and they're going to figure that out on the offense. Then I mentioned the Georgia Tech earlier. They host number 12 Notre Dame. It's actually in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, but still basically a home game because it's like 5 minutes from Georgia Tech. But big opportunity for Notre Dame to keep rolling. Number 24 Michigan at number 22 Illinois. Biggest game for Illinois in a long, long time. And Michigan's the favorite. Illinois wins this outright. Then number 8 LSU going to Arkansas for a night game. It did it 2 weeks ago, and Arkansas could very much do it again and put LSU on upset alert. But I would think LSU, after playing such a poor first few quarters versus Ole Miss, they're going to get right. They're going to go into Fayetteville and handle business. So that's kind of my thought on those couple games. No betting tips, but if you bet, I would say that Georgia money line and Illinois money line might pay out a little nice bit. I want to mention this. This is kind of like another news thing. SEC and Big Ten might be doing a version of what has been done in basketball between the SEC and Big 12, and then what's been done between the SEC, ACC, and a few of these different conferences where they play conference matchups based on how good teams were, or like certain decisions to go into those matchups. But it might be coming to football. This means a lot for. This means even more for a team like my Kentucky Wildcats or South Carolina or Georgia. The teams like that have a rival that you play during rivalry week that's non-conference. Because there's a chance the SEC goes to 9 games conference. Then they would add this, which gets you to 10 games. You have 2 give-me games. So, honestly, there's a chance that the Louisville game would maybe be, like, canceled. Then it would be discontinued if this ends up happening. But the SEC Big Ten Challenge would essentially be, I think, as of right now, it would be us versus Michigan State. So the process that goes into it is taking the last 2 seasons. So Kentucky went 7-6 last year. Say we go 7-6 this year, then you're looking at 14-12. So they're going to look and they're going to pair you up across conference. So I think it's because the Big Ten has 18 teams. So I believe it'd be the top 16 in the Big Ten. So the bottom 2 would get left off, but they would cross you. So say like Georgia has 2 undefeated seasons these next 2 years, and Ohio State has 2 undefeated seasons these next 2 years. Those 2 would play, and it'd be a home and home for a 2-year series. So as of right now, I think it would be Kentucky and Michigan State that would play. So we would go to East Lansing one game, and they'd come to Lexington one game, and it'd be super cool just for college football. And I'm kind of in that group of there's a big part of the fan base that's seen this and been like, well, if we're not going to compete for a national championship, then give us exciting games. So that would definitely make it exciting. I would love to like travel to a place like East Lansing, maybe go up and watch the game there. So it'd be super cool. It'd be awesome to see if that ends up happening. I will make podcasts in the future, in the very near future, because it's right around the corner. I've been talking about it for a couple weeks now. College basketball is here. This past Monday, they released the AP Top 25. I'm not going to go through every team and talk about them, but I'll at least look at these. But I'll be making videos soon on previews of each conference and just kind of my thoughts going into the season as we get closer to college basketball. There's been all these charity exhibitions going on right now, secret scrimmages, all this different stuff. So those have been awesome to see. But, yeah, college basketball is here. And as I assumed and as I thought it would end up being, top 5 is exactly what I thought and how I thought, exact order. Number 1, Kansas. This is a team that returns DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson. They obviously lose Kevin McCullough, probably their best player last year. They return those 3. They bring in A.J. Storr, an absolute stud out of Wisconsin. And then Zeke Mayo, one of the best, I think he was the leading scorer among Power 4 transfers. I think that's what it was, South Dakota State. So, reloaded roster while just bringing people back. Kansas definitely deserves that number 1 spot. Alabama, you can clearly make the argument for them too. They bring back nearly everybody off that championship team. I think they did bring it. I'm trying to think if they lost anybody, but and then they bring in Chris Youngblood. They bring in Cliff Amori to help down low. Like, this Alabama team is absolutely stacked. They're going to be fun to see, and they probably believe that they deserve that number 1 spot, as well as Kansas. UConn 3, Dan Hurley's the coach. That's the number 1 thing there. But, no, to be real, though, Hassan Diarra, it feels like he's about to take over that Tristan Newton role of last year. He's going to be able to take over games as a guard. And then they bring back Samson Johnson, who was phenomenal in spurts last year for them. And the most important returner is Alex Caravan. Coming back, it feels like he's going to be the one where what Cam Spencer was last year. It feels like Alex Caravan is going to be kind of the coach on the court, per se, because he's been in this system for a couple of years, and kind of learning and teaching everything on the fly. Then they're bringing in Liam McNeely, Amon Noel. So big freshman opportunity. But I did post on all platforms that Alex Caravan did say this was the most intense Coach Hurley had been out of the last couple of years, and Kamani Young also kind of backed that up. He was like, he doesn't care that we won 2 titles. He doesn't care at all. He's ready to move on. So UConn's definitely going to be extremely dangerous all year. Houston 4. This is a constant wagon that Kelvin Sampson's pushing out. L.J. Cryer, one of the best shooters in college basketball. And then, obviously, they'll probably have like the number 1 defense the entire year. So Houston 4. Then T.J. Otzelberger. I think it's pronounced, hold on, Milan Momcilovic. I think that's how it's pronounced. I just remember not knowing about him last season, going into the season, and watching a really early game. It's against some horrible team, and I was watching him play, and I was like, this man is a blast to watch. Phenomenal basketball player. They bring back Tamin Lipsey. They returned like 4 of their top 5 scorers from last year, I think it was. They returned so much, and T.J. Otzelberger is completely building that program and turning them into a powerhouse. So, Iowa State at 5. And then to round it out, you got Gonzaga at 6. They returned Graham Ike down low, and then you got the backcourt of Ryan Nembhard and the Nolan Hickman. I was about to say the Kentucky decommit. So that being your backcourt is phenomenal, and debatably the best in college basketball this year. Duke number 7. Cooper Flagg gets all the hype, but Con Knuppel is the freshman that I think you need to watch out for the most, because I actually heard John Fanta, absolute legend. I love John Fanta to death. I heard him compare his preseason status. I don't remember the wording he used, but of what his role could be. He compared Con Knuppel's role to Reed Shepherd of Kentucky this past year, which is high praise coming from Mr. Fanta. 8, Baylor. This is going to be a team that if you're maybe watching this and you may be a casual or you just don't pay a whole lot of attention to the transfer portal because it's too much, you're going to notice 2 huge names that are playing for Baylor this year. And I'm going to warn you before you watch it, because you're going to be like, dude, what? When did they start going there? Norchad Omier on the Final Four team for Miami a couple years ago, played a couple years there. And then Jeremy Roach. So both of them there for Baylor, and it's a Scott Drew coach team, going to be an outstanding team. And then freshman VJ Edgecombe is up there right behind Cooper with the hype that he's bringing in to Waco. The other team that I think you could argue has the best backcourt in all of round ball in college basketball, North Carolina Tar Heels. Elliott Cadeau is going to make a leap. Ian Jackson's there as a true freshman. And then R.J. Davis, the reigning ACC Player of the Year, is returning for the Tar Heels. And Hubert Davis has got a squad. The only issue is the thinness in the front court. They're going to have a couple different guys that I feel like they're going to be rotating. They're going to need, I think it's Cade Tyson is his name from Belmont. They're going to need him to step up. In North Carolina, they're extremely safe to pick this year to be a top 2 team in the ACC. Number 10, and then I'll probably just start throwing out a couple of things. This is the returning Pac-12 Player of the Year as they come into the Big 12. Caleb Love, and yeah, I mean, there's not a lot else to say. Like, Caleb Love returning is plenty. Him returning for his 5th year, 2nd year at Arizona, obviously, but it's just a huge get for Arizona, and they get Trey Townsend from Oakland. Obviously, if you only watched Oakland play the Kentucky game, you'd be like, Jack Golke was their star. No, Trey Townsend was their elite player all season last season. So them getting him is a huge pickup. And you got Auburn, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Don't have to talk too much about them. I mean, Zakai Ziegler is there for Tennessee. He's going to be a first team. I think he was first team all SEC. And then they get Chaz Lanier from North Florida, who's going to be kind of, I'm assuming he'll just be kind of asked the same type of thing as Dalton Knecht, just like, hey, go get a bucket. That's all he's going to be asked in my mind. A&M returning Wade Taylor. They're returning a ton. And A&M's it's a culmination of a lot of different guys, and they're going to be a good team. Purdue 14. This honestly feels too low for Purdue, considering they're going to be like possibly the favorite in the Big Ten, and they have Braden Smith, who's preseason Player of the Year. They still have Fletcher Lawyer. It feels too low to put them at 14 coming off of that Final Four run, and obviously they lose Mason Gillis to Duke and then Zach Edey, but it just feels a little too low. I don't know who you drop down. Maybe you put Purdue at 11, drop everybody down a slot. But Purdue 14. Creighton 15, Arkansas 16, Indiana 17, Marquette 18, Texas 19, Cincinnati 20, Florida 21, UCLA 22, Kentucky 23, Ole Miss 24, and Rutgers 25. And this feels weird to see Rutgers that low because the freshman class that they're bringing in of Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper leading that class, this class 7 years ago would be ranked like top 5. This team would be ranked top 5 preseason, it feels like. So it's weird to see them that low at this point. So, and then for Kentucky, I feel like this whole offseason, my Wildcats have gotten absolutely zero respect. And the AP poll kind of shows the respect is getting there. And it feels like I've seen John Fanta say it. I've seen a few different people say it. This is my sleeper team. And Andy Katz had Kentucky look 14th. So I think this Kentucky team can be outstanding. It's obviously just weird because none of these guys have ever played basketball together. And then this coach has never coached any of these guys. Only coached Jackson Robinson. But so it's all new. But I think 23 is right, especially for preseason. But I think this is a team that can surprise a lot of people, and I could probably do more of a Kentucky segment if that is requested, but I don't want to, if you're not a Kentucky fan, I don't want to just bore you to death with Kentucky. So Texas, I'm not super high on. They're going to have a really solid group of players. I like some of the transfer pickups that they have, but I believe they ended up getting Arthur Kaluma, I think. Am I thinking of the right player? Yeah, Arthur Kaluma is on Texas now. So, they're going to be solid, but I think 19's a little high from where I would have them. Marquette returning Cam Jones. That's all that they need to return. Obviously, they lose a couple of really key pieces, but Shaka Smart, good basketball coach, and they'll play good ball there at Marquette. Indiana, I was shocked they were 17 because they have the brand that the AP poll usually loves to bump. And they brought in the number 1, number 2 portal class. Umar Ballo being the centerpiece of that transfer class. I think Indiana's just going to be really good this year. And this Indiana-Purdue matchup this year is going to be absolute cinema. I might have to get out to that game, actually. go to that one this season. And then Arkansas, this is just a very stereotypical Kentucky team of the last 15 years. So it's just John Calipari, his freshman. He's got a couple of the guys coming with him from Kentucky. But, yeah, I really expect DJ Wagway. I said DJ Lagway. Man, mine's still in football. DJ Wagner to have a really good breakout year. Adu Thiero is obviously really solid. You can tell all the people going after him in the portal. They get John L. Davis from FAU, going to be a really good pickup. And then to kind of hold it down low, they got Jonas Adu. So they're going to be really solid just across the floor there. And they'll be really, really deep with Boogie Flan, Billy Richmond will be solid. And, yeah, this Arkansas team's going to be good. And there's no doubt about it. And we'll see what they do once they get to the tournament, because that's always the thing the last couple of years with John Calipari. But they'll definitely be good. Now, I was kind of around 16 is where I would expect to see them. So that's kind of the AP poll there. So I basically did like short summaries for some teams. But yeah, a couple teams that I expected to be in this that were not. So I made my own top 30. And just to give you an idea, I thought Illinois would be in the top 25. I thought Kansas State would be in the top 25. I ended up moving Texas to 29. St. John's, I was shocked to not see in there. And yeah, that's about it. I think Michigan State's going to be a really good team this year, though. This feels like the freshmen are going to end up breaking out this year. So, yeah, it's going to be awesome. College basketball's here. This is the time of the year where it all combines, and it's going to be amazing to see. So, let me know your thoughts on the AP poll. Maybe you think teams should be higher, lower, whatever. And let me know your thoughts on this Week 7 of chaos in college football. Let me know if this is the end of the Ryan Day era, or if they're going to bounce back and end up going to make a title run or something. Just go comment, leave a review on Apple Podcasts if that's how you're tuning in. All the support is greatly appreciated. I really appreciate all of you for tuning in and checking out the channel. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy this college football weekend that we have coming up. And peace.